All right, so I just installed this e-trailer hitch on a 2020 SQ5, Audi SQ5. So basically, I'll talk through the process of what it takes to remove it, kind of some of the pain points on where the tough little parts are, and just kind of talk through it and show you some pictures along the way. So just finished installing it. It took about 3.5 hours. I took my time, a couple spots where I wasn't sure. Felt like I was about to rip a panel off, but you got to pull kind of hard for some of the clips to pop loose. So just kind of talk through that. So start underneath the back bumper. There's 4 T25 Torx screws you have to take out. So start taking those out. That's your first step. Second step, inside the wheel well, there's a T25 on the bottom on both sides of the car. So right down here at the very bottom, if I can get my light in there. There it is. So there's one T25 on the bottom of inside of each wheel well. So take that off. And then I taped the trim panel here along the side. This little piece, this comes off. All the way up to about the 12 o'clock position right above the wheel. There's a T25 inside of here that you have to take off as well. But there's also 3 additional T25s inside the wheel well, close to the edge as you go up here. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and then there's 2 10 millimeter bolts that are, I think they're just plastic bolts actually, but they go on those on both sides of the car. So there's 2 10 millimeters on the driver's side, 2 on the passenger side. So you gotta take those off, and then you basically peel this piece back up about, again, to that 12 o'clock position. Just pop that out. The bottom part of this is the hardest. There's a clip here at the bottom that you have to kind of pry apart with a trim panel tool. Just be careful. I felt like I was gonna rip it when I first took it off. So that's kind of that's one of the trickiest parts, is that bottom of that little trim piece when you first get started. As you do that, the 3 T25s inside the wheel well, after you pull this piece up, there's 3 T25s inside of there that you have easier access to when that piece is off. But just do that, and the 2 10 millimeter bolts inside the wheel well as well. Then after you do that, you pop the hatch, and there's 2 T20s right here, little plastic T20s, so don't use the power tool, just use a screwdriver. There's one on either side, just a T20 there and T20 there, so undo those. Big plastic capped T20 screws. And then you'll pop up this piece using a trim panel tool. Just get a trim panel tool under either side of it. You can start at the one edge and work your way around. I started on this side and just popped it up. It comes straight up. And then you'll take off, you'll open this piece here, just turn it and it comes straight out. Same thing on the other side. This one actually has a 12 volt cigarette lighter. So this one has a wire on the inside of it, but you can just kind of set it to the side, out of the way. Inside under here, there's 4 10 millimeter bolts across the back of the car, 2 under this, and then 1 behind this panel in the corner, 1 behind this panel in the corner. So there's 4 10 millimeters that you actually have to kind of use a magnet to get out, so they don't drop down inside the bumper once you get them loose. Inside of the hatch area, once you pop that cargo protective metal piece at the top open using the trim panel tool, and take the 2 corner panels off and set them aside, there's 4 10 millimeter bolts that you'll have to take off. They're kind of recessed and you need an extension to get into them. Then you'll need a magnet to kind of pull them out and make sure they don't drop down inside the bumper. Once you get those 10 millimeters done, or undone, I guess, there are the 2 electrical plugs on the driver's side corner. There's a black tab that has, or there's a black connector that has 2 tabs on it that you pinch together to take off. And there's a smaller brown connector that has 1 tab that you take off. So once you get those done, you'll pop out. You basically take the rear bumper cover off and expose the steel bumper underneath. Those two wiring harnesses and a rubber grommet on the back driver's side corner will come out through the bumper as well. That's the only thing that was connected on the back of ours to the inside of the car. Once you do that, to remove the steel bumper that's underneath, there's 4 16mm bolts on either side that you will take off. You'll reuse that factory OEM hardware when installing the hitch that you get. Mine I got from eTrailer.com. I think it was just under $300 for the 2020 SQ5. You'll put some silicone sealant around the bigger holes in that steel, or where the steel bumper cover will, or where the hitch that replaces the factory steel bumper will cover. I'll show you that in a couple pictures as well. That silicone sealant just makes it watertight around those bigger holes on either side. Basically, you just reinstall the hitch over where the steel bumper used to be. You can toss that or sell it, recycle it, whatever. But when you install the hitch using that factory hardware, the specs that came in the instructions said to torque those 4 16mm bolts on either side to 53 pound-feet. So I used a torque wrench and did that. Then just basically, repeat the steps that you did to take all the parts apart. Just reverse that order and put them back together. So the bumper fascia has a cutout in the bottom that the actual hitch, you don't even have to trim anything. It fits perfectly through that opening in the middle of the bumper fascia cover. It takes a little bit of wiggling, and it's helpful to have an extra set of hands when you are putting that piece back together. That was the other tricky part, was I set the box underneath and had a towel over it, so if the bumper fascia cover fell, it would fall on the towel, not on the concrete floor in the garage to scratch it. So I used that as kind of a safety underneath. But getting the opening, the hitch through the opening was kind of the trickiest part, and getting the bumper just kind of set back in place. That and the little tiny trim piece around the wheel were the two trickiest parts. Just took my time. Reinstalling the 10mm bolts, I just used tape on the end of my socket to hold those nuts in place so they didn't fall back in the bumper when I was reinstalling them. Just a piece of the painter's tape that I used around the wheel wells to protect it. I just used a piece of that to kind of tape as I put the socket onto the nut that goes on those 10mm bolts. And then just reinstall all the T20s, T25s, 10mm bolts inside the wheel well, and then the 4 T25s underneath the back bumper was the last step. Wipe the bumper down, any fingerprints or anything you put on it. Just clean it up. Good to go. Definitely worth the 3 hours of 3.5 hours of install time it took me, versus I think I got a quote for $650 to install it. The Audi part, the optional Audi part that we did not get, was I think it's a $950 part. This hitch cost us just shy of $300 with shipping and tax. And actually I think it was free shipping, but anyways, from eTrailer. So all in, I've got 3.5 hours of time put into it, and $300 or so instead of $900. Or if I bought it and then had somebody else install it, I'm right back to the total price of the actual Audi factory part. So definitely worth the time to do it yourself and save a couple $100. But hope this was helpful. Hope all the pictures and the kind of the walkthrough and my process of doing it help you in your install. That's about it. So good luck. Drop me a comment, question if you have anything. Like and subscribe. I've got more Audi videos, and got some Golf R videos. I've got a 2016 Volkswagen Golf R as well, so I got some videos on my channel about that. So again, thanks for watching. Have a good day.